What's going on, everybody? Nick at the Long Haul Podcast, as always, and again joined by my boy Brad. What's going on, man? So this is episode 4 because 3 went out. Yeah, 3 went out yesterday. So episode 4 of Real Training. The last one we kind of went into exercise selection, correct? Yeah, thought so.
Like pre-exhaustion.
Yeah, dude, my brain is like not really functioning anymore. I'm at that point in this diet where like I'm kind of mush, but I just realized I have Marley's socks up here. They're clean. Yeah, dude, I've been fucking struggling today, like big time. Yeah, the last few days. It's a high day today, and I'm still struggling. But he's giving me another high day tomorrow, and I have legs tomorrow, so I've got some. I'm a little nervous to look at the logbook, if I'm being honest. So, and I just hit that wall this week where like I couldn't get a pump to save my fucking life on push day.
Sucks, man.
Yeah, but how's training coming for you? Are you getting back into it at all, or?
I'm doing I can do pretty much arms the same as I could train them before, but like that's really, I'm not trying to force it too hard. I'm just trying to stay really active, and I got a little step counter. I'm just keep my steps really high, staying moving all day. That's not enough. I'm still kind of like slowly dropping body fat and visibly maintaining my muscle. At least I'm sure my strength is pretty far down, but like visually, I'm not too different.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would take a lot more than 6 weeks to make you lose muscle, especially the way you train. Right now, like you're gonna think that you're losing muscle because you're gonna start to like flatten out and stuff, but
Right,
like, it's less glycogen, less water, and less inflammation in the muscle. So you're just gonna kind of decrease a little bit. But I mean, I've heard a lot of people recently say after Tampa Pro this weekend that Hunter's surgery and stuff was probably one of the best things that's ever happened to him. Because I mean, we all know that, or we know that mindset of a bodybuilder at his level, trying with the potential that he has. You know, he's working his ass off. If he had kept working that whole time, maybe he wouldn't have been as fresh.
Yep.
He might not have been as good, or maybe he gotten more seriously injured. So this could be a really good reset for you. You know, especially as strong as you are. And you're reaching some pretty crazy numbers on some pretty like easily compromised exercises, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So it could definitely be good for you. So I'm sure you're ready to get back into it, but the rest is good for you.
Yeah, it'll be. I think I'll respond really fast once I start coming back.
Yeah. So just to kind of go over again what we talked about on the last episode. If you didn't listen to it, go back and check out that one after you finish this one. And we talked about how to choose your exercises and in what order you want to put them in. And then we kind of got into a little debate back and forth about pre-exhaustion or activation exercises prior to your big compounds. So the 2 topics for today, was there anything you wanted to go over from the last one? Anything you wanted to elaborate on?
No, I mean, if I start talking about it, I'll dig so deep to where you may as well just go watch the video. So
yeah, right. Yeah, we went pretty deep in it on the last episode, so definitely check that out if you haven't already. So this episode, we're going to talk about how we choose our sets and reps, and that'll be pretty quick. I think we both have a similar mindset on that. And then we're going to go through a leg workout. So we're going to talk about how we like to set up our leg workouts. I'll probably talk about that pre-exhaustion stuff again, just to kind of poke at Brad a little. But so I actually literally had someone ask me this in the questions on Instagram today. I actually didn't get a bunch of spam messages. I got one question. Yay. But so he asked like how I go about picking my sets and reps. Sets for the most part, for a long time I've had the 3 to 4 set up, you know, but still kind of using the principles that I have now. So I was just doing too much. Like I would do a bunch of warm-up sets, and I'd have like 3 or 4 working sets, and like the last 2 would be difficult, and I wasted a lot of time on the first few sets, you know, where I could have gotten more weight, more reps. but now through training with John and just talking to some more people up at Destination, kind of shooting the shit and learning a little bit more, I kind of stick to the 1 to 2, sometimes 3 set range, and that's just working sets. And those sets should be as hard as possible. You need to give like everything you have into those, and if it's not enough, you didn't work hard enough. Like there's no, like you said in a previous episode, there's no backup sets on this. It's not like you do set 3, oh, let's do a 4th set. No, there is not that. So you have to
set 2. If you want to do another set, then you did something wrong,
Right, exactly. You should be like kind of nervous going into that working set. Now, I mean, that's not necessarily the case if you're first starting off with the program. Like you're just figuring it's a new exercise. It's something you haven't done in a while. It's a new rep range. It's a new order. Like the first few weeks is probably going to be you figuring out how you feel in that and where your numbers are at. So
training intensely is a skill in and of itself. Right. You'll become much better at pushing yourself farther the more you do it. The few times, likely, I mean, it'll be failure to you, but your set point of what your failure point actually is it might not be so high compared to what you're actually capable of. But it's a very subjective thing, but it's a skill that over time you'll be much better at pushing yourself even further, and your failure point will increase over time.
It usually takes me, like me personally, like if I get a new program or like I write my own program or whatever, I've switched up exercises, I've switched up whatever it is, whatever variable it is I'm switching up. It usually takes me like a time or two through that program to really get in a groove, and I also don't necessarily want to go balls out the first time. I want to like see how I feel with this stuff. I want to feel out the exercises, because sometimes I'll choose an exercise and it's just not the right fit, and if I go balls out on something that like isn't the right fit for my body, I'm either going to train the wrong muscle or I'm going to injure myself. Like I'm not going to hit what I'm trying to target. I'm not going to feel what I'm trying to target. And then I'm just wasting my time and just going heavy for no reason. Yeah. So sets is in the 1 to 3, mostly 1 to 2 for most things. You should be able to get enough out of 2 sets. And then rep ranges, we've kind of touched on that before. Anywhere from 6 to 30 reps is fine. And just, I don't know how you block your stuff out, but typically the rep range, like this isn't with all circumstances. This will change sometimes, but like the easiest way to break it down would be like 6 to 10, 10 to 12, 12 to 15, 15 to 20, 20 to 25, right?
Yeah, that's kind of hard in mind.
Right. 25 is probably the highest I'm going to go on anything. Yeah. It's kind of hard to figure out how heavy to go on 30 reps. And it's a matter of like choosing one of them you want to do. Like if you want to do some heavy work, do some 6 to 10s, work hard on some heavy stuff. If you've been doing heavy stuff for a long time, you've been in that rep range for a long time, move out of it. Do 10 to 12, 12 to 15, whatever. Like,
yeah, that's a really important tool to use when you begin to plateau in a logbook. And say you're at a gym where you're not as lucky as one of us, where your gym just has like 6 different leg extensions, 4 different leg, like crazy amount of equipment. If you only have, say, maybe 1 leg curl, and you're hammering an 8 to 12 set over and over and over, and you're getting to where you can't really progress in that rep range, a good thing to do would be to maybe dip down to a 6 to 8 or go up to a 20 to 25 and progress in a different rep range. And then when you come back to that original rep range, you'll be stronger because you're still progressively overloading, but you can plateau within a certain rep range, but that's not necessarily plateauing within the large spectrum of what you can do that's effective for hypertrophy.
Right. It's just your body has gotten used to that stimulus.
Yeah.
It's gotten used to being in that rep range with a certain intensity. Because, you can only take like a 6 to 10 rep range so far, before you start risking injuries, from most.
I'll get like one I load up like crazy is like a seated leg curl. I'll get to where I'm strapping like 80 fucking pounds on the stack for like a set of 7. And then like, at some point you're just like, all right, like it's a little ridiculous. So I'll go up to for like maybe 3-4 weeks. I'll only do 12 to 15s or 15 to 20s. And then if I wanted to go back to a 6 to 8, I guarantee you I'd be stronger. But I probably don't want to because you can only strap so much onto a stack. But that's how you kind of like auto-regulate your strength plateaus without having to just get rid of the movement altogether if it's an exercise you really like.
Yeah. And then with the only thing that I would put on that is your compound movements, I'm not typically going to go like above 20. Like 20 is probably going to be, yeah, 20 is probably going to be the most that I'm going to do with like a heavier loaded thing, like a compound movement. Just because after 20, like it's like I said in the beginning, it's really hard to figure out how much weight to use for anything over 20, right? To where it's actually going to be enough to stimulate hypertrophy, right, and go to failure. Other than just getting a really bad burn, like it'll be an intense fucking burn if you go there, but is it really what you need to build muscle?
Yeah, and I mean safety is a factor too. Like if you're doing free weight movements, if you end up pushing because once you get past 20 reps, those you're not totally in control. You're just it's just pure output at that point. Right. And if you're doing something where like stability is a big factor, like a free weight squat or something, that's not necessarily a safe place to be in. Even if cardiovascular fatigue is a factor too within those rep ranges, which it is for most people. So that's something you would kind of hold off on for something that's a lot more safe, like a leg press or something where you're seated and in a controlled plane of motion where you're not having to stabilize a load.
Right, for sure. Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to say is like, I mean, if you are loading up heavy enough to where 30 is going to be beneficial to you, like you're going to start to risk issue in a compound movement. And then with isolations, I wouldn't really go below 10. Like 10 would be the lowest.
Yeah.
I mean, to go into single digits on a isolated movement like a bicep curl or a shoulder like a dumbbell lateral raise, like to me it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree.
I would say
you're already getting the heavy stimulation from compound work, even if it's not necessarily a side delt movement. You're getting heavy overload of your side delt in a press. So I mean, it's going back into that rep range. It's kind of you're not really hitting the full spectrum.
Right. I think there is a stipulation on that though. Calf raises, I think you could.
I think calves need to be trained heavy, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I think they need to be trained in a multitude of different like rep ranges, but definitely heavy. So like a calf raise, yeah, you could go a little bit lower on, but to do a bicep curl for 6 to 9 just sounds kind of dumb and like bicep tendonitis.
Yeah, anytime I go below 10, immediately like the day after it's like flared up so bad. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that's what I used to do all the time. I would constantly deal with. I would get it like right here at the top of my bicep, straight across, because I was going really heavy with my dumbbell curls or cable curls or whatever it is, and even forcing my hand into a position that it didn't want to be in, like with a barbell straight curl. Like that doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't even look right.
I used to love like showing off and curling 135, but like this is so stupid, honestly.
Like if you go back far enough on my Instagram, there's one of me in a white cutoff, color 135 at the old UNCG Rec Center. When I was doing some program off of bodybuilding.com, man. The good old days, when we were young and dumb. You're still young, halfway dumb, but anything else you want to add on to that? I think we've pretty much covered reps and sets there.
Yeah, just it's important to make sure that you're not spinning really large portions of time within the same rep range, no matter the movement. I mean, I wouldn't really go too high on a movement where safety is really a factor. But it's really important to kind of spin different times in different rep ranges to kind of prevent plateauing, especially if you don't have a crazy array of equipment available to you and you only kind of limited to certain movements over and over. It's even if you have to say like on push A and push B, you're hitting the same exercise, you can segregate your rep ranges on those days, and it's a separate stimulus. So that's a way that you kind of widen the spectrum of stimulus with very limited equipment is by segregating your rep ranges. And it's just for a connective tissue health and joint health perspective. For a longevity sake, it's a lot smarter to kind of dip into these higher rep ranges and spend some time there and give your body a break. And then you're always progressing strength regardless. So progressing your strength in a 20 to 25, that'll still benefit you when you go back down to heavyweight, but it's just not so much stress on your joints and your connective tissue and your tendons and all that.
Right. And like, I think the biggest thing is just if you are hitting a plateau and you're getting to a point where it's like, nothing's working. Like usually when I talk to those people, they're like, oh yeah, I do 3 to 4 sets of 10. It's always 10 for whatever reason. The reps is always 10. It's like, if you can hit 10 for every single one of your sets, you did something stupid. You didn't train hard enough. You're fucking around. You're not training. You're just going through the motions. You're doing your 3 sets of 10 and calling it a day. I hit my 10, yay me. That doesn't mean you're going to get growth. Like we've talked about in the past, you need a novel stimulus.
There's no magic rep number that's gonna.
Right.
Now you're growing because you hit 10. You know, it's all about, you know, making your body adapt to something it's never experienced before.
Right. And I think that kind of comes from the old like fitness magazines, you know, because I remember seeing like the Jay Cutler articles about how Jay Cutler trained chest, and everything he did was 4 sets of 10 and 3 sets of 10. And it was like, yeah, that's fucking Jay Cutler. Do we know who we're talking about here? The guy who was a freak of nature by the time he was like 8.
You should never use, like, it's sad because like the people that most like beginners emulate are people that are just anomalies. Like you have no chance, really. You have maybe a 1% chance of getting the same response that they did to exercise. Yeah. And most of those guys, the way they train now, that's not necessarily what got them there. You know, they're just training because that's a kind of another point of like we should have brought up on the high volume versus low volume is once you get to that point where your body is your livelihood and your financial income, and it's kind of what you do for a living. The risk for injury and the room for that is much less. And they can maintain their muscle with a different kind of training style than what got them there necessarily. Like, I mean, Kai Green, all those guys are stupid fucking strong. Like, Kai Green, there's videos of him back in the day, inclining 4 plates like nothing. Jay Cutler used to do that too, but they don't necessarily do that now because it's really high risk and they don't necessarily need to once they have that amount of muscle. But it's really important to focus more on like what got them there rather than what they do now, because that's not necessarily going to get you looking like them, you know?
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, these articles and stuff, like obviously magazines aren't really a thing anymore, but like these articles we see online, people putting out these ebooks and stuff, they tend to be these like freaks of nature who just like touched a 20-pound dumbbell and they grew 6 inches everywhere.
If you ask them what's the best training style to get their size, they probably couldn't really give you a very like well-supported answer, you know? It's just because it's so everything they know is just anecdotally what worked for them. But I mean, there's genetic freaks that really any training style would have worked to them to a pretty high degree. Yeah.
And then, I mean, the good thing about that is it at least gets them into working out. If like, that's what they see, that's what motivates them. That's what gets them into it. By all means, that's awesome. But at some point, like that's going to stop. It'll probably work for a little while. But after a while, you're not going to know where to progress from there. And that's when you come talk to morons like me and Brad, and we change some stuff. But anyways, so I think that's about it for reps and sets.
Yeah, that's a pretty simple.
Yeah.
Just kind of don't do anything that feels unsafe. I mean, stay in a rep range really that's just comfortable for you and progress your number, progress your strength within that rep range. That's the most important thing. There's no magic rep range. 8 to 12 is not necessarily king over. It's just kind of the sweet spot of heavy and high reps. But I mean, that's not necessarily where you need to be if you're working around injuries or something like that. Just do what's comfortable for you and get stronger at it.
And if you're in a plateau, the best range to be in is the one that you're not working in.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's just a matter of like, assess your goals, assess what you want, and go from there on what you should do next. Assess like, should I drop down reps and go heavier, or should I go up a little bit? Like, and you're going to need to base that off about kind of like how your body feels really. If you feel really good and like you started to hit a plateau in your rep range, but you still feel really strong, drop it down, go down to the 6 to 8. If you're starting to feel pretty banged up, like make it lighter, you know, or go higher on the reps so that the load is a little bit lighter. When I say go lighter, that doesn't mean go easy.
Training light it's probably fucking harder. Like to me, it's harder doing a like 20 rep set is agony, man. Like it's much rather do a heavy set of 6, you know, and like get that adrenaline spike and feel great and then be done. Like you're gassed and like breathing and burning. It's tough, man. It's a whole nother level of hard.
Yeah, for sure. So it's not easier if we go up in reps. If you're training the right way, it's not easier. But so let's get into legs. Let's start this off by saying I think both you and I have pretty good leg genetics, if my mouth will work. So for people who don't have as good leg genetics, this stuff can be applied, but you need to take it and mold it to yourself, right? So me and Brad have said that from the beginning. Like, you need to pay attention to your stuff.
Yep.
You may have a coach and you may have somebody like in your corner doing your training session, but you're the only one who can tell whether or not this feels right, whether you're feeling good from the training, or if like everything just hurts. If everything hurts and you're just sticking with it because coach said so, that's dumb. And if you have a good coach, that coach is going to want to know that, hey, I'm not feeling great with this. Can we change things up? So pay attention.
Probably the most like subjective and person dependent of all the muscle groups, just because like
Right.
so many factors affect leg training, because they're
Right.
so like they're such big compound movements for most people that is like, I mean, everybody's body is different. So it's like the way that you're going to react to certain movements and feel in certain movements is going to be totally different than the next
Right.
guy.
Right. So, I mean, I'll let you kick it off. I'll let you go ahead and start talking. I've been talking a lot, so I'll let you talk about how you've been setting up your leg days recently, or how you like to pick and choose. I don't know what example you want to go down. You can use your leg day if you want, or
yeah, I'll use mine and then kind of first talk about kind of beginners, because once you get to a certain point, you're going to need to structure leg routines around what lags and what doesn't, what responds best and what doesn't. But for the most people, I think you just can't go wrong with like, I'll talk about movement patterns, because I mean there's different exercises that fit within movement patterns. I think you need a leg curl. I think you need some kind of squat pattern where you're getting a lot of knee flexion. So that could be barbell squat, hack squat, Smith squat, whatever. Some kind of squat movement pattern. I think you need a leg press where it's purely leg drive with no lower backs loading. And then I think you need some sort of leg extension. I think just having those within a routine that can cover the basis for pretty much any beginner.
Yep.
Well, let me plug this back in. Yeah, I mean, those like, if you hit something that covers those movement patterns, you're pretty much that's a solid leg routine.
Right. And I don't think it's one of those things where legs is already hard, and I feel like everyone feels the need to make it harder. It doesn't need to be this huge complicated workout, just like everything else. Like, it does not need to be complicated. Again, like we have said from the beginning, make it as simple as possible. Find the least amount that you need to grow and stick with that until it stops fucking working. So if I could go in and just do hack squats and be done, I would do that. But there's certain parts of my body that I need to come up that the hack squat is not necessarily going to get the growth that I want, right? So, but that's like, that's the whole idea. Do less, get more. Like, this idea of do more, get more is weird to me. I would rather do less hard as fuck and be done. You know what I'm saying? Like it. So yeah, I think simplifying it that way was really good. Now, how do you
like once you have that guideline of those movement patterns, that's where it becomes person dependent. I can't tell you that you need to do a barbell squat and you need to do a 45-degree leg press, because those might not feel right for your body. So
right.
I do think those movement patterns are important. You do need a squat movement pattern. You do need a leg press movement pattern. But within that, you have hundreds of exercises to choose from. If you don't like a barbell squat, or just you don't respond well to it, or you have problems with a barbell squat, you don't need to do a barbell squat. You could do a hack squat. You could do a Smith squat. You could do a low bar squat or a high bar squat. There's just 1,000 variations. But you need to, once you understand kind of like, this is the biomechanical movement patterns I need to be like moving through, then it's really up to you. Neither me or Nick can tell you this is the exercise specifically that you need to do for big legs, because it might not work for you like it did for us.
Right. And again, like, we can give you a training program and can structure something for you. But again, at the end of the day, I don't know how your body feels, and I don't, I can't be in your mind going through the workout with you. So it's one of those things where you definitely have to have feedback with your coach and be open with them as much as possible. Don't just listen and be a robot. Like, ask questions, find out why they're setting it up this way. If you go through the workout and it just doesn't feel right, I mean, sure, you might need to give it some time and get used to the training if it's something different than what you've been doing. But you kind of can tell if something isn't right for you, you know, and only you know that. So you have to be open with whoever it is that's doing your training. Now, mine's pretty similar. The question that I had for you was, when do you incorporate a hinge? So something for like an RDL for your hamstrings. I know someone's going to ask that question.
Yeah, that kind of depends on the split that I run. If I'm doing like just a plain push pull legs, then I'll probably put it on every other leg day instead of like a squat movement. So like an RDL and then a squat on the other. But recently I've been doing kind of a modified push pull leg split where it's like a push, a legs, a pull, a push, and then a leg pull day. And then that kind of gives me the space to put. So it's push A, legs off, and then pull, push B off, and then I call it like a density day. And then that's where you would put your hip hinge variation, some back and some hamstrings all in one day. Right. And that kind of gives you, I love that split because it gives you room to hit every compound lift across. So I can still hit my heavy barbell rows that I like, which I couldn't normally fit in with a hip hinge. So I can do, because that pull day is kind of in the middle of the week. And I'm spacing my lower back loading far enough to where I can fit everything in. So like if I want to do a squat, a barbell row, and a hip hinge, I could fit all that in. Right. Which normally you can't do that on a normal split. You would have to alternate like every other week. But that's kind of on that like density days where I put my hip hinge variation.
Yeah, that's definitely an important thing to take into consideration when you're doing if you're setting up your own program. Is like if you just did heavy barbell rows or you just did a heavy barbell squat. Hi, Liv. Like your lower back took like whether you felt it in the exercise, like obviously we never want to walk away from something like that with a lower back pump or lower back pain, but you're still loading your back at the same time. You know, like it is taking brunt of that. So you don't want to do like a really heavy squat pattern and then just a day or two later do a really heavy deadlift pattern. Like
lower back load is the most important thing to be aware of, like when you're doing a program, because like having a fatigued lower back will fuck up every day of the week for you. It happens, you know.
For sure. So that's definitely super important. And the way my split has been going recently, I do RDLs every other week, but it's on pull day. So one pull day rotation, I do a hip thrust, and then the other rotation, I do an RDL. So it rotates back and forth that way. And my squat movement is the hack squat. So I'm not getting a ton of like lower back movement.
That's pretty lower back.
Safe. Right. You're braced in there. You're not moving back and forth or having to, like, your lower back doesn't have to work as hard. It's still working, but it's not working as hard as like a barbell back squat. So the way that mine has been structured recently is the leg curl first. So seated leg curl, I think, anytime someone says, hey, my hamstrings are falling behind, like they're weak, I really want to bring them up. What should I do? This is typically something that I go to first, seated leg curls. One, because
that's my number one for hamstrings. If I could pick one for hamstrings, it would be the seated leg curl without a doubt.
Because one, it's easy, right? It's not that fucking hard to set yourself up in that thing and lock yourself in and go. An RDL, depending on your level of experience, can be pretty difficult. If you, like, I don't know how much you've experienced this with your recent in-person training, but like people bending over, it just like blows their minds when I try to tell them, put your hip.
Nobody can balance because everybody wants to like hyperextend, stick their ass
out. Right. They bend over at the waist. Yeah. They're not pushing their butt back to the wall. They're not hinging. They're just bending over. So teaching that RDL pattern is difficult, especially for someone who might not already be in really good control of their body. Like it's something you really have to work on programming and get them to do for a long period of time before it clicks. Like for whatever reason, sometimes it turns on, you know? So seated leg curl, you can brace really hard into that thing. That's another reason why. So it's easy. The bracing profile on it is awesome. So you can set it up to where the only thing that's working is your hamstring. Set that seat up right, put your hands on those hand grips and brace as hard as you can. Don't let your body move. I notice a lot of people when they start to curl, they kind of start at the hips. They kind of swing it.
I have a custom seat belt that I'll put on and
Nice.
strap the waist back, and I just carry that in my gym bag. And like for
Nice.
like leg extensions or seated curls, I'll keep that in, and you're just fucking you're like locked in stone. You cannot move.
You fucking loser.
I
But yeah, so lock yourself in. Don't let your hips rock back and forth. Don't let that take over, because if you start doing that, then you can start to like rotate the hips and you can start to irritate your lower back without even loading it at all. Like if you're arching to get that weight down and compensating with other muscles, you're offloading into other stuff. So lock everything into stone. And the only thing that should be moving is your knee, right? Initiating that pull from the hamstring and allowing that to do the work. Nothing else should be moving. So if you go and look at my Instagram, the post that I put up, I'm locked into that thing hard. Like I'm pushing down, my triceps are firing hard, and you can see like my upper body is not moving. And the only thing is moving is the knee joint. So yeah, that one is by far my favorite, because you can put a shitload of effort into that, get a crazy good contraction, and it seems to help pull that drop out on the hamstring. I've noticed since I started really putting a lot into it that my hamstring has just dropped more and more.
You're working through pretty much only the lengthen and mid-range, which is where for a training program, that's where you want to spend most of your time, is within the lengthen to mid-range, because that's where most of the gains are going to be made, and that's where you have the most output capacity. So yeah, if I'm only going to pick one hamstring exercise, it'd be seated leg curl all day, and
Right.
you could get hamstring just on that alone. You don't have to do anything else.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I agree. If I was going to do a hinge pattern on a leg day, where I was going to do an RDL, I would put seated leg curls before the RDL.
I would too, actually.
So it just, with an RDL, there's so many things that can go wrong. I've seen so many videos of people hurting themselves on this, and not just the hamstrings, like your back and all that stuff. So if I can do a seated leg curl, get my hamstrings like really beaten up, I can lower the load a ton on an RDL and get more out of it with less weight, because my hamstrings have already worked a shitload on the seated leg curl. So I would definitely put the seated leg curl before an RDL movement. But right now, like I said, RDLs are in the pull day. Next, it goes into hack squat, and it rotates every other week between reverse banded and just straight hack squat. Then leg press, like you said, again, same thing, but opposite from the hack squat. So when it's reverse banded hack squats, I have non-banded leg press. When I have regular hack squats, I have banded leg press. So the band is adding tension, so it's not taking away tension like it is with the hack squat. So there's reverse banded hack and regular banded leg press, and that is a fucking bitch. I don't know, I sent him a video of me doing that leg press, and he goes, "You need more band tension." I was like, "Okay, how much?" And he was like, "You need to double wrap those orange bands you have on there and strap them." I was like, "I have the gray ones." He's like, "Perfect, use those." Like the real thick Elite FTS ones. Oh yeah, dude. They're the fat boys. Like they're like that long or that wide, and I have that bitch double wrapped. So I think my last non-banded leg press was like 7 plates, and when I band it, I'm getting like 4, 3, and it's fucking hard.
That's brutal. That's kind of, well, that's another thing to like credit bands too. If you're talking about like a band versus a chain, is
Right.
Bands are the only thing you could add that apply consistent eccentric tension.
Right.
Because if you were to add like chains to something, then they're a free weight. So there's a moment of time where they're in free fall. So that they don't add pure eccentric tension like a band does. Band just, if you put a band on something, it's overloading the eccentric tension like constantly. It's really fucking hard. You'll feel it immediately.
Yeah. If you guys haven't tried that, go ahead and try it, and just be warned, use a lot less weight than you expect, because those bands are, if you're using some heavy bands and banding it right, it's fucking hard. But then after that, I have one more curl. So I go into lying leg curls after, and then finish off with like kind of a burnout on leg extensions. And then some adductor work at the end, which seems to be turning into a dude's move now. And I think JP has a lot to do with that. Jordan Peters throwing a stupid amount of weight on an adductor machine.
That's the thing that most people like. That'll take your big adductors will take your legs from big to fucking big. Like that, the visual improvement that you get from having big adductors, it improves your sweep probably like almost just like I would say equal to quads.
Right.
Honestly.
Right. But the one thing that I want to put, I just want to kind of step back a little and talk about the hack squat and the leg press again, because John Jewett was talking about this, and he wrote a blog post on it, and talking about how to get big adductors and how to develop your adductors. And one of the first things he said is, you're probably thinking I'm talking about that machine, and he wasn't. So that adductor machine is great, and it's definitely something that you can add in for some extra volume with it. But with a deep hack squat and a deep leg press done properly, your adductors are going to have to work fucking hard in the hole. Because at a certain point, once you get like far enough into the hole, your glutes get out of an optimal position to contract, because that hip is so bent, right? Like if you look at my leg press videos, Brad's leg press videos, or hack, either one of ours, when we get down to the very bottom and our hips are like here, your glutes are out of position to really be able, like they're still working, but it's not optimal. At that point, your adductors have to take over to help you come back out of that hole.
They're pretty much responsible for your stability in that part. Because I mean, if your quads, they can only do this.
Right.
So I mean, all this side to side motion that's being controlled, that's only your adductors that are doing that.
Right. So that's it goes back to the thing of like, do you have to squat ass to grass? Like, I think you need to if you can comfortably, and if you can't comfortably, you need to figure out why you can't comfortably. Like there's something going on with your hips that you need to address, to where you can get all the way down. And when I say ass to grass squats, I don't necessarily mean a barbell squat. Like I don't think me and barbell squats really get along that well anymore. Mostly because of that position, putting load on my shoulder here, like even going back this direction too far hurts my shoulder. So to be here and in that loaded position just kills that injured shoulder. So I probably won't really back squat again, to be honest. I mean, I feel like I get more out of a hack or like a V squat.
Safety bar?
Yeah, we have a safety bar. We had this, dude. We had this other bar. We had this other bar up there that I want to try. It's like a safety bar, but it like hooks. So the bar is like back here on your back, and it wraps over the top. Yeah, it's called a Mars bar. It's not that low. It's like right here, but it's like wrapped around. So that thing looks fucking crazy. And then we also have that crazy looking pendulum squat. Have you seen that at all? The orange one? Just go to the destination page. They posted about it recently. That thing's pretty fucking crazy.
I've used one before. They're awesome.
Yeah, well, this one's a little different than some of the other ones I've seen, where it's like a swing. It's like this crazy weird orange contraption. Yours have to go look at it. But yeah, I don't remember what I was talking about. Ass to grass squat. So it doesn't necessarily have to be with a barbell. Like that can be taken in any squat pattern, like Brad was saying. Like barbell back squats they are great. They are a very good leg developer if you can do them comfortably. But I think when people talk about squats being king legs, people tend to think barbell squats only. But I think it's the squat pattern in general is king for legs. It doesn't matter the variation, as long as the load is intense enough to give a novel stimulus and to break down muscle. You're going to get good work from it. I don't think it necessarily needs to be a barbell back squat.
Yeah, and the problem with a barbell squat is, I love barbell squats, but for the vast majority of people, once you get to a certain level of being trained, the weak link is no longer your legs, they're your back, it's your lower back. So like even now when I barbell squat, that's why you see all the big guys barbell squat, they do it pretty much last almost, because they need to, like I was talking about in the last episode, the stability to output ratio, that needs to be more even. So yeah, most people, the squat will get you fucking far. probably 80% of my legs on just the barbell squat. But you reach a point where it's no longer your legs failing first. It's your lower back, and it's either your lower back or your cardiovascular.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then I like being able to, when I'm going to get under a load and I'm going to get under something heavy, I like being able to brace into something, like that, being able to have those pads on a hack squat where I'm in a fixed position. I just prefer it because I think I know it allows me to do more weight. I know it allows me to get more tension, and I get more out of it for leg development. So why?
No, you're right. I mean, pretty much across the board, the more you can brace, the more ability for output you have. So, I mean, imagine doing a leg press without that back pad, right? Like you could leg press like a plate on there, maybe. You had to hold yourself there with your hands, but like it's like force and counter force
for leg press.
Yeah. I mean, it's force and counter force. So the more you have to brace against, the more you can output.
Right.
So yeah, I guarantee your legs are having a lot more direct output of your quads or something like that in a hack squat than they are in a barbell squat, because you're not balancing a bar and going down in space.
Right. And then the other thing that you can do with a hack squat or a V squat or whatever version you want to talk about here that you can't really do with a free squat is, as you are driving up, you can almost do a leg extension. So don't actually do this. Don't slide your leg on the fucking pad, dumbass. But if you act like you're pushing your foot up to the top of the pad, not only are you going to get more drive, but you're going to get more quad activation. You can't do that with a back squat. You would fall. It's not like you can kind of mimic that tension. You can try to flex your quad that way, but you can't actually drive your foot up the pad.
Yeah. The space you have for like manipulating your own mechanics is way greater if you don't have to stabilize something,
Right, for sure. And the other thing that we should talk about on here, why your setup on legs right now is a little bit less volume than mine, is because of our rotations of splits. So how often are you hitting legs right now?
0 right now because I'm not training, but normally like I'm hitting probably quads. I hit everything twice a week, but maybe like let's say on a traditional push-pull legs, not the weird variation I'm doing now. I'm hitting it twice every 8 days.
Right. Twice in a period of 8 days?
Yeah,
or
so
like you hit a leg day and then 8 days later you hit another leg day?
It's like within 8 days. So it's like push, pull, off, legs, and then push, pull, off, leg. So yeah, it's twice every 8 days.
Twice. Okay. All right. Cool.
It's a complicated way I could have counted,
but yeah. So you're hitting it twice in an 8-day period. I'm hitting it once. So I hit mine once a week. So like I touched on in the beginning, especially my quads are very genetically dominant to the rest of my body and just respond very well. So I did it for a while where I did legs twice a week, but I got really unbalanced. Like my upper body was not looking the same and my quads just kept growing, which is great. But
go ahead.
Right. But it threw off my physique. So when it comes to bodybuilding and keeping that symmetry, if I do it too often, I'm going to mess up my symmetry a lot. And I think I've been able to build my upper body to now match my legs, which I'm happy about, and I want to keep that way. So I can get away with doing legs once a week, whereas upper body stuff, I'm touching it twice in a week. So I do a little bit more in that day because I'm not hitting it again for another 7 days. So whereas Brad is hitting like every 3 to 4 days or however that rotation goes. So you need a little bit less because you're doing it more frequently. So
go back to what I said about like how to lay it out. That's not how I lay out mine at all.
Right.
That's what I'm just saying, for like, that's how a beginner should do it. I don't even like, mine is like, because I I go off my weak areas, right? Which is what you have to do at some point. You have to structure things around what's lagging. So
Right.
like my quads are my strongest by far. Hamstrings are kind of in the middle, and then my glutes like are tiny. They suck. So I like first things first. I'm doing a hip thrust, and then a leg curl, and then probably another leg curl, and then I'm not doing my quad compound stuff to the end of the workout.
Right.
And I'm probably only doing 2 or 3 exercises.
Yeah, that definitely comes into it, and I'm in a very similar boat where I mean my glutes have come up a lot, but they're still something that I'm trying to work on. But they're shifted to another day, so
Yep.
I do my hip thrusts and stuff on my pull day, and the hip thrust and the RDL on pull days, which is really taxing the glutes. And then leg day starts with that leg curl because hamstrings need to come up more than my quads, just to keep that symmetry front to back and top to bottom. Yeah, I think that's all I have.
That's legs, yeah. I mean, that's how you set it up.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a little bit of the pre-exhaust stuff, because
right.
Leg day is probably the only day where I actually do almost, not quite intentionally, but almost intentionally pre-exhaust, because I think not necessarily for the reason because I don't want to use as much weight, but for the reason is most people don't put nearly as much effort on like the leg curls and the adductors and shit like that as they do on like a squat.
Right.
I've probably noticed the most probably visual changes in my leg development is when I started putting a lot of attention into like getting really good at a leg curl or getting really good at an adductor and stuff, like the machine stuff that people kind of view as accessories. So they'll do it after they're fucking exhausted and they did their crazy squats.
Yeah.
But I actually get that stuff out of the way first to give it its kind of due diligence.
Sure.
And then I'll do the compound stuff where I know I can kind of get fired up for. And then once I'm done with the compound, I'm gassed. That's the end of the workout. I'm done.
Right. It's funny because the leg curl is an isolation movement, but you can kind of treat it as a compound, and I have been for a while.
Yep.
And that, again, I kind of have to go back on what we were talking about earlier with rep ranges. Like a seated leg curl, you could go into single digits. I wouldn't say as low as 6 or 7, but like, and a set of 8, I think you can still get a lot of stimulus out of that just because of the way it's set up and because of the movement pattern itself. You still need to be careful because it's a very easy place to blow out your hamstring, because there is so much tension being applied, but there's no reason to like baby that exercise. Like you can push that. And I have been, and like you said, I've noticed a lot of progress from it. I've noticed more progress from that than I ever did putting a lot of effort into an RDL.
Yeah, because I mean, RDL is. You think of RDL for hamstring. It's a long contractile range, but it's not necessarily. It's nowhere close to the full contractile range of a hamstring. So I mean, there's no real curling happening. It's almost loading it from the opposite spectrum. It's like just in the very lengthened, kind of partially lengthened, and that's not necessarily like that's not anywhere close to hitting the full spectrum of its ability to contract. So you definitely need to spend a lot of time on a leg curl. I don't think you can get big hamstrings at all without a leg curl. I really don't.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you would be missing a huge chunk of the range of that muscle. And I don't think you would get that hang from the side, especially. You might be able to develop some decent from behind. You might be able to see that like when it's in that kind of more stretched position with like a rear double, you might be able to get some of that good fiber coming out, but it's not going to be as deep. And then definitely from the side, you're going to be shallow. So it's not going to, when I say shallow, you're not going to have that hang where like, if you see somebody who's got crazy hamstrings, it looks like it's falling off the back of their leg.
I mean, your quad and your hamstring should be pretty much equal in the way they come off your leg,
Right, exactly. And to go back to what we were talking about earlier with how we set up the leg days, if, again, we're going with an RDL on leg day, by doing the seated leg curl first and putting your effort into that, and then going into the RDL where the emphasis is stretching the hamstring, basically, you've already pushed a lot of blood into it with that seated leg curl. And I think there is something to taking a muscle through a stretched position when there's a lot of blood in it. I think there's something to that when it comes to growth. I don't know what the science is behind that. Maybe you do. I don't.
Some things in bodybuilding are just, it's anecdotal. It works, you know.
Oh,
I mean, that's when you're training. If you feel something and that fucking feels great for you, stick with it, because I mean, it's everybody's like
right,
everybody's different. So I mean, if you feel something that feels great and
right,
you notice it works, just fucking stick with it, because
yeah,
you don't necessarily have to have everything right on paper according to so and so on YouTube. You know, like
right. And just anecdotally, what it seems to do for me is like when my hamstrings are full of blood, they're pumped up because I just did a bunch of seated leg curls. I went heavy, whatever it is I did. They're nice and full. When I get it into that stretch position, it's like it can push just a little bit more blood in there. It opens up a little bit more space in the muscle to push a little bit more blood, push a little bit more nutrients, do a little bit more damage. Um, it just seems to work really well if it's incorporated that way.
I'm sure there is actually some studies to support that, because that's
Oh,
really
yeah.
similar to the DC stretch principles, where you
Right.
stretch the fascia to increase
Yeah.
the volume of blood flow. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's something to support that we could find.
Yeah, I knew there had to be a study on there, but that kind of stuff just doesn't get me excited. Yeah, I don't learn that way either. Like I didn't really do that amazing in school because it was all just like people reading out of the book to me, and that does not work. Like I have to go in and do it. I think the
Yep.
reason I learned most of what I did in college was because I would take what they were saying in class and then try to figure out how to apply it into my life, into my bodybuilding, into my fitness. And that's kind of how I picked stuff up along the way that was important to me, you know.
that's
Um,
that's the real benefit for people from this series, is
but
because you guys can assume that I've actually put in the research and like thought about a lot of this shit and figured out the right answers, but I don't need to explain it to you in some boring sciencey way. I mean, I'm just going to kind of dumb it down to you and give you what you can apply and take away, and then kind of spare the shit that you don't really need to hear. Just know that what we're saying is relatively supported by science, and it's supported anecdotally as well. And something like training, like your body, it's anecdotal information is very important compared to scientific information, more so than probably any other field, because it's how your own personal body responds to a stimulus. You know.
for sure. And I mean, science to a certain degree, like science is what continues to propel us, and we continue to find these new things. But a lot of times, because scientific studies are done in kind of an isolated area or not with certain or with a different population of people, it can be hard to it can be hard to apply to what we do. And the audience that we're speaking to with this podcast, uh, sometimes that stuff just doesn't translate right. You know, it doesn't carry over the way it does in the study, and it just doesn't necessarily click. Like it might be good, but it doesn't look as good as this other thing we've been doing over here for 20 fucking years.
I mean, none of those studies are done on bodybuilders. You know, what qualifies you as a trained individual in those studies is having 6 months of like moderate exercise experience. I'll get people respond to my stories and shit being like, 380 grams of protein is too much. Studies show that a trained individual only needs blah blah blah. And I'm like, that doesn't apply to people who are pushing their body to the extreme. You know, being a trained individual, that the what qualifies you for that is so minimal that it's nowhere close to people like us that are trying to get an elite level of pushing our body to an absolute extreme and getting an extreme response. Some of those things just won't transfer 100% to bodybuilding. I mean, they just won't.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, the bro science, you know, like it works. A lot of it. I mean, some of it's fucking stupid. Some of it's really fucking stupid. I'll tell you that. But like that's the hard part about this fitness thing is like wading through what's real, what's fake, what does science say, and what does anecdotal evidence say. You know, like trying to compile all that stuff is hard. So hopefully everybody that's listening to this is getting something out of this, and me and Brad are able to kind of clear some of that up for you, and um, just make things a little easier for you as if you're setting up your own program. Me and Brad were talking about this the other day, or Brad and I. Sorry, my English is awful. We were talking about this the other day, and I want this to be one of those series where people who come and ask me that question of how many sets do I need? How many reps do I need? How do I set up my workouts? How do I build big legs? Like, I want to be able to direct them to this stuff so they can specifically figure everything out for themselves without me having to explain every time. Because just a simple text response doesn't necessarily get everything. Whereas you and I sitting down for an hour or however long we go, we can kind of get into a little bit more of that stuff but not necessarily so far into the weeds that we've now lost sight of the big picture.
Yeah, I mean, paralysis by overanalysis is a fucking thing.
Oh,
and like at the end of the day, like take the stuff we're saying as truth and take it as like something that can really help you. But I mean, if you're making progress on your own and you're happy with the progress, then like fuck what we're saying, honestly. But
right.
but everything we're saying will help you, and it's kind of the things that maybe you don't need it right now, but 6 months down the road when you start to plateau a little bit and you need these little extra things to add into your program to kind of get you that extra bit of progress, then come back to these videos and kind of use the stuff we're saying and apply it to yourself just little bits at a time and see
Right.
how you change.
Exactly. It's funny. Do you know who Dr. Mike Israetel is?
Yeah. The reps and reserve, right?
Yeah. So I just right before we started this, I was on his Instagram, like one of his things popped up, and sometimes I like to look through comments because the shit's funny, and sometimes stuff on there intrigues me. I want to see what someone has to say about something, but I started reading some of those comments, and it's like trying to understand what they're trying to say in that text is like,
yeah, I mean
you're going way over
yeah.
what he's saying, you know, like
yeah.
It's people are definitely way too focused on too many small things, man, rather than just getting in there and training hard. Now, it's when you giggled at the reps and reserve thing where I'm over here doing the reps and reserve thing, but
the way you do it is, I mean, the way they do it is like so fucking that there's some so far the end of the spectrum of like I can't even relate to it, honestly, man. Like the way you do it, the way you explain how it's in your program makes some sense to me. But
right.
when I watch their stuff and I watch them train, I'm just like, it just doesn't click with me, man. Like success leaves clues, I think, and I think all the biggest, freakiest dudes are the strongest, and they train to failure. And I mean, however you want to look at it on paper, and like, yes, you're accumulating more effective reps on paper over a mesocycle or whatever. But it doesn't seem to click, you know.
It's definitely a very, very detailed and complicated way to go about it. But there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, yeah, I don't connect with this. I've watched how he sets up his workouts and stuff, and it's interesting, but it's just different.
I would love to sit down with him and like hear him explain it to me. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I watch him train on his videos and not impressed, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, he's very intelligent, and I've learned a lot from like listening to some of his podcasts and stuff that I've seen on YouTube. And
he's a genius. But
yeah, he's a very intelligent person, and
at some point, being a genius can almost hinder you in a sport that's
right.
Around it's solely based on hardcore effort. You know,
right. And I think his style he's been successful because it obviously hits a certain person. It hits a certain demographic. You know, he's filling a void for the science nerds, really. Like there are some science nerds who want to be fucking big, you know, like it's not your interest outside of the gym don't necessarily mean that you can't be big, you know? So his style of training definitely relates to certain people. But when I look at it, I'm the same way. Like, yes, you've got some smart principles. Yes, I will take some of the stuff that you're saying and apply it to what I'm doing. But John's approach is just much more of the meathead shit that I understand. You know, it's not this weird, like, I don't have to think about week 6 when I'm in week 1. And like, it's just like, I understand what he's saying, but at the same time, it seems just definitely overthinking and looking over like little small details. But anyways, we got off on a tangent on that one. That was just about like looking at some of these comments where people are just going crazy over analyzing these things.
Yeah, I mean, bodybuilding is at the end of the day, it's complicated, but it's fucking simple. You know, like are you getting stronger? Are you increasing your food? Is all that happening linearly over time? Like, I mean, that's how you get fucking big. That's how everybody in the world has gotten big thus far.
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, there's almost all these little complicated things they're not necessarily important until you hit stalling points. But I mean, bodybuilding is getting bigger, getting stronger.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
So at the end of the day, with all of these episodes, the biggest takeaway that you can take from this is train hard.
Yeah.
Train hard.
Train
hard and train smart. You know, like whether you like our style or not, take it for what it is and listen to it. But or don't, whatever. I don't give a fuck. Doesn't affect my day at all. But you can take some of our principles, apply them to your stuff, and make yourself work harder. Like, just find a way to where you're getting enough out to where you're getting that response, and not necessarily beating your head against the wall by just doing more. Like, there are ways to be to train harder without having to do more.
Yeah.
So I think we can kind of leave it at that. So wow. I was going to try and say something really cool there, but I fucked it up. So bye.